While everyone's drooling over The Godfather and Star Wars, true cinephiles know the 1970s harbored secret treasures that never got their due. Did you know Al Pacino and Gene Hackman only made one film together, and it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, but bombed in America? Or that Francis Ford Coppola's most personal film was sandwiched between Godfather masterpieces, but completely overshadowed by them? These forgotten gems aren't just cinematic footnotes, they are revolutionary works that changed filmmaking forever. 1. The Conversation, 1974, sandwiched between The Godfather and The Godfather. Part 2, Francis Ford Coppola's paranoid masterpiece. The Conversation got completely buried in the avalanche of praise for his mafia epics. Gene Hackman delivers one of cinema's most devastating character studies as Harry Cole, a surveillance expert who becomes consumed by guilt when he suspects his recordings will lead to a murder. The film's opening scene, a virtuoso technical achievement capturing fragments of conversation in San Francisco's Union Square, immediately establishes Coppola's command of both sound and image. What's mind-blowing is that Coppola was simultaneously working on The Godfather Part 2 while editing this film, with legendary sound designer Walter Murch piecing together footage while the director was away. The Conversation won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, but was completely overshadowed at the Academy Awards by Coppola's own Godfather sequel. The film's themes of surveillance, privacy, and technology have become eerily prophetic in our current age of digital monitoring. As Roger Ebert noted in his Great Movies review, Harry Cole is a man who has removed himself from life, thinks he can observe it dispassionately at an electronic remove, and finds that all of his barriers are worthless. The haunting final image of Harry playing his saxophone alone in his ransacked apartment has become one of cinema's most powerful metaphors for modern isolation. Second, Scarecrow, 1973. In the only film that ever paired Al Pacino and Gene Hackman, director Jerry Schatzberg crafted a road movie masterpiece that's criminally overlooked today. Fresh off The Godfather, Pacino plays Lion, a childlike ex-sailor traveling to Detroit to meet his child for the first time, while Hackman's Max is a hot-headed ex-con dreaming of opening a car wash in Pittsburgh. Their unlikely friendship forms the emotional core of a film that Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian called a freewheeling masterpiece, with effortlessly charismatic performances. The film's greatness lies in its uncompromising commitment to character over plot. Schatzberg gives these two acting titans room to breathe, with long takes that showcase their building chemistry. What's fascinating is that Hackman and Pacino reportedly clashed constantly during filming, yet that tension somehow translated into magical on-screen chemistry. Both actors have cited Scarecrow among their personal favorite performances, with Hackman calling it his absolute favorite role. Despite winning the Palme d'Or at Cannes in 1973, the film bombed at the American box office and fell into obscurity. Today it stands as a perfect time capsule of 70s character-driven filmmaking and a showcase for two masters at the height of their powers. As one IMDb reviewer perfectly put it, Scarecrow is entertaining as well as deeply profound, with performances on a level rarely found in any films. 3. The King of Marvin Gardens, 1972. Bob Rafelson's follow-up to 5 Easy Pieces reunited him with Jack Nicholson for this haunting Atlantic City set drama that feels like a beautiful fever dream. Nicholson, playing against type, is David Stabler, an introverted late-night radio host who spins autobiographical monologues to an unseen audience. His estranged brother Jason, Bruce Dern at his manic best, summons him to a decaying Atlantic City with promises of a Hawaiian resort scheme. The film's genius lies in Rafelson's decision to flip expectations, casting the normally explosive Nicholson as the repressed, passive brother while giving the volatile, charismatic role to Dern. Cinematographer Laszlo Kovacs captures Atlantic City in wintertime with a bleak, washed-out palette that makes the boardwalk look like a desolate dream world. Ellen Burstyn delivers a heartbreaking performance as Sally, a former beauty queen clinging to faded glamour. The film's unusual structure, beginning with Nicholson delivering a somber radio monologue about his grandfather's death, immediately signals this isn't conventional storytelling. Critics at the time were baffled by its deliberate pacing and ambiguous ending, but today it reads as a profound meditation on American dreams gone sour. As Roger Ebert noted in his belated appreciation, The King of Marvin Gardens seems today like one of the seminal films of its time, with Nicholson's introspective performance setting the stage for the character-driven cinema of the decade. 4. Fat City, 1972. John Huston's gritty boxing drama stars Stacy Keach as a washed-up fighter in Stockton, California, trying for one last shot at redemption while mentoring a promising young boxer played by a young Jeff Bridges. Unlike most boxing films, Fat City isn't interested in triumph or glory. It's about the soul-crushing cycle of poverty and broken dreams that traps its characters in a life of desperation. Cinematographer Conrad Hall created a visual style so authentic it feels like documentary footage, shooting in actual Stockton flop houses, dive bars, and migrant labor camps rather than studio sets. The film's most extraordinary quality is its complete refusal to provide the audience with cathartic sports movie moments. There are no big wins, no heroic comebacks, just the brutal reality of what happens to fighters after the final bell. Susan Tyrrell earned an Oscar nomination for her raw, unhinged performance as an alcoholic barfly who briefly becomes Keach's lover. Despite universal critical acclaim, the film was a commercial failure, perhaps because it was too unflinchingly honest for audiences expecting a Rocky-style crowd-pleaser. Film critic David Thompson calls it a masterpiece, plain and simple, while director Paul Thomas Anderson cites it as a major influence on his own work. The devastating final scene in a coffee shop, where Keach and Bridges momentarily connect before sliding back into their hopeless routines, ranks among the most quietly devastating endings in American cinema. 5. Wanda, 1970. Barbara Loden's sole directorial effort is one of independent cinema's greatest achievements, though it was virtually forgotten until a restoration in 2010 brought it back to public attention. Loden, best known as an actress and the wife of director Elia Kazan, wrote, directed, and starred in this stark portrait of a passive, drifting woman in Pennsylvania coal country who abandons her husband and children, then falls in with a petty criminal. Shot on 16mm for just $115,000, Wanda's documentary-like aesthetic creates an unnerving intimacy. Loden's performance is a masterclass in understated acting. Her Wanda moves through the world with a disconnected passivity, accepting whatever happens to her with an almost unsettling lack of resistance. The film was inspired by a newspaper article about a woman who thanked a judge for sentencing her to prison, and Loden captures that same sense of a person for whom incarceration might be a reprieve from the crushing weight of freedom. Wanda won the International Critics Prize at the Venice Film Festival, but was barely distributed in America. Loden never directed another film before her premature death from cancer in 1980. Filmmaker John Waters calls it the most honest movie ever made, while critic Berenice Renaud notes that Wanda represents the first and last time in the history of American cinema that a woman filmmaker was able to tell her own story. The film's influence can be seen in everything from Kelly Reichardt's work to the Safdie brothers' gritty urban dramas. 6. Badlands, 1973. While Terrence Malick's debut feature has gained some recognition over the years, it's still criminally underseen compared to its reputation among filmmakers and critics. Based loosely on the Charles Starkweather killing spree of the late 1950s, Badlands stars Martin Sheen as Kit, a garbage collector who embarks on a murder spree across the Dakota Badlands with his teenage girlfriend Holly, played with eerie detachment by Sissy Spacek. What distinguishes Badlands from other crime spree films is Malick's already developed poetic style, the dreamy narration by Spacek, the breathtaking magic hour cinematography by Tak Fujimoto and Steven Larner, and the ethereal use of Carl Orff's Gassenhauer. The film's most haunting achievement is how it creates an almost fairy tale atmosphere around horrific acts of violence, capturing the disconnection of its killers from the moral weight of their actions. Made for just $300,000, Badlands premiered at the New York Film Festival to rapturous reviews, but received only a limited release, grossing less than $1 million. Martin Scorsese has called it one of the most important films of the The 1970s, while director Alejandro González Iñárritu named it as the film that inspired him to become a filmmaker. Film critic Roger Ebert, in his Great Movies essay, observed that Badlands is as well crafted and distinctive as any directorial debut I've ever seen, noting how it immediately established Malick's singular voice in American cinema. 7. The Hired Hand, 1971. Peter Fonda followed up his Easy Rider success by directing this haunting, elegiac western that subverts nearly every convention of the genre. Fonda stars as Harry Collings, a drifter who returns to the wife and child he abandoned years earlier, seeking not heroic adventure, but redemption and a place to belong. The film moves at a meditative pace that confused audiences expecting another Easy Rider-style counterculture statement. What makes The Hired Hand extraordinary is its visual poetry. Cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond created a breathtaking look using flashed film stock and diffusion filters that gives the film a dreamy, impressionistic quality years ahead of its time. The innovative editing by Frank Mazzola includes dissolve montages that feel more like experimental cinema than a traditional Western. Bruce Langhorne's spare, haunting score, using dulcimer, fiddle, and banjo, creates an atmosphere of melancholy beauty that's utterly unique. Universal Pictures had no idea how to market the film, and essentially dumped it into theaters with minimal promotion. It disappeared quickly, becoming a footnote in Fonda's career until a 2001 restoration by the Sundance Channel brought it back to critical attention. Director Richard Linklater championed the restoration, calling The Hired Hand one of the most beautiful westerns ever made. The film's exploration of masculinity, commitment, and the price of freedom feels remarkably contemporary today, making it ripe for rediscovery. 8. Thriller, A Cruel Picture, 1973. This Swedish exploitation film, also known as They Call Her One Eye, tells the story of a mute woman who is abducted, has her eye gouged out, is forcibly addicted to heroin, and forced into prostitution before embarking on a violent revenge spree. While the film's extreme content made it the first film ever banned in its home country of Sweden, beneath its exploitation trappings lies a feminist revenge tale of surprising power. Director Bo Arne Vibenius pushed boundaries by incorporating unsimulated sex scenes performed by body doubles and using actual ammunition in the slow-motion gunfights, creating genuinely dangerous shooting conditions. Star Christina Lindberg delivers a performance of remarkable depth, despite having almost no dialogue, communicating volumes through her expressions and physical presence. When released in America, a staggering 25 minutes were cut, removing most of the film's explicit sexual violence. The uncut version wasn't available until 2004, over 30 years after its initial release. Quentin Tarantino has cited it as a major influence on Kill Bill, particularly the one-eyed Avenger concept, and purchased a rare 35mm print for his personal collection. Despite its exploitation elements, the film has been reassessed by some critics as a powerful feminist statement about reclaiming power in a male-dominated world. As film scholar Alexandra Heller-Nicholas notes, Thriller offers one of cinema's most uncompromising visions of female revenge, wrapped in the guise of exploitation, but delivering something far more transgressive. 9. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, 1974. Sam Peckinpah's most personal film stars. Warren Oates as Benny, a down-and-out piano player in Mexico, who accepts a macabre assignment to retrieve the severed head of a man who impregnated a powerful criminal's daughter. What begins as a typical bounty hunt transforms into an existential journey as Benny, along with the head in a fly-infested sack, confronts his own moral disintegration. Peckinpah shot the film in Mexico with a small crew and little studio interference, resulting in a raw, unfiltered vision that divided critics. Many were repulsed by its nihilism and violence, but others recognized its strange power. Warren Oates, in what many consider his finest performance, channels Peckinpah's own world-weary cynicism. The director reportedly told Oates, "Play it like you're me," and the result is a character of remarkable complexity, pathetic yet dignified, corrupt yet capable of genuine love. The film's strange, disjointed tone shifts from black comedy to tragedy to surrealism, often within the same scene. MGM had no idea how to market it, and the film flopped spectacularly. Over time, however, directors like Oliver Stone and Quentin Tarantino have championed it as Peckinpah's ultimate statement. Film critic Michael Sarago called it the culmination of Peckinpah's eloquent brutality, while director John Woo considers it the ultimate existential statement disguised as a bloody action film. The image of Oates driving through Mexico, drinking tequila, and conversing with a decapitated head has become one of cinema's most haunting metaphors for spiritual desolation. 10. Walkabout, 1971. Nicholas Roeg's visually stunning Australian outback drama follows two British children, stranded after their father's suicide, who are helped to survive by an Aboriginal boy on his walkabout rite of passage. Though recognized in some circles as a masterpiece, the film remains criminally underseen by general audiences who might only know Roeg from his later film, Don't Look Now. What makes Walkabout extraordinary is Roeg's background as a cinematographer. He creates a visual language that contrasts the harsh, unforgiving beauty of the outback with the rigid civilization the children have left behind. The film contains almost no dialogue, relying instead on visual juxtapositions and the remarkable performances of its young cast, particularly David Gulpilil as the Aboriginal boy in his screen debut. Roeg's innovative editing creates connections between seemingly unrelated images, suggesting deeper thematic relationships between civilization and nature, childhood and adulthood, innocence and experience. When initially released, many viewers were uncomfortable with the film's candid depiction of nudity involving young actors, while others misinterpreted it as a simple survival adventure, rather than a complex meditation on cultural disconnection. Critic Roger Ebert, in his Great Movies essay, called it one of the great films, noting how it contains little dialogue and is impossible to imagine with more. Director Danny Boyle has cited Walkabout as a major influence, particularly on his film 127 Hours, saying, Roeg taught an entire generation how to use the camera to create psychological and emotional states rather than just record action. 11th Sorcerer, 1977. William Friedkin's white-knuckle remake of The Wages of Fear stars Roy Scheider as one of four desperate men hired to drive trucks loaded with unstable dynamite through the treacherous South American jungle. Made for an enormous $22 million after Friedkin's success with The French Connection and The Exorcist, Sorcerer represents one of Hollywood's most spectacular commercial failures, opening the same week as Star Wars and disappearing from theaters almost immediately. The film's production was legendarily difficult, shot on location in the Dominican Republic with real explosives, real trucks, and real danger. The centerpiece sequence, where the trucks must cross a rickety rope bridge during a violent storm, took 3 months to film and stands as one of cinema's most intense set pieces. No special effects were used. Those are real trucks on a real bridge being pounded by real water cannons. Tangerine Dream's electronic score creates an atmosphere of mounting dread that perfectly complements Friedkin's visuals. Initial reviews were dismissive, with many critics comparing it unfavorably to the French original. In recent years, however, Sorcerer has undergone a complete critical re-evaluation, with a gorgeous restoration spearheaded by Friedkin himself. Directors from Christopher Nolan to Quentin Tarantino have championed it as a lost masterpiece. Friedkin himself considered it his finest work, saying, "I thought Sorcerer was the best film I ever made." The film's influence can be seen in everything from Mad Max, Fury Road, to Mission Impossible, proving that sometimes the most revolutionary films are the ones that fail spectacularly upon release. 12. McCabe and Mrs. Miller, 1971. Robert Altman called his revisionist Western an anti-Western, deliberately subverting every trope of the genre. Warren Beatty stars as a small-time gambler who arrives in a mining town and establishes a brothel with the help of a professional madam played by Julie Christie. There are no heroic gunfights, no moral clarity, and the entire film is shot through a hazy, dreamlike lens that makes it feel like a half-remembered story. Cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond achieved the film's unique look by flashing the negative, exposing it to light before development, creating a soft, desaturated image that feels like faded photographs. Altman made the radical choice to record dialogue naturally, with characters talking over each other and many lines being barely audible, a technique that was revolutionary at the time. Leonard Cohen's melancholy songs provide the soundtrack, despite being anachronistic to the period. The film's pacing is deliberate, focusing on the community's development rather than traditional Western action. When it was released, audiences expecting a conventional Beatty Star vehicle were confused and disappointed. Critics were divided, though influential voices like Roger Ebert and Pauline Kael immediately recognized its brilliance. Today, it's considered one of Altman's masterpieces and a landmark of 1970s cinema. Directors from Paul Thomas Anderson to the Coen brothers have cited it as a major influence. As film historian, Robert Kolker notes, McCabe and Mrs. Miller rewrote the grammar of the Western, turning myth into anti-myth and heroism into human frailty. The film's final image, McCabe dying alone in the snow as Mrs. Miller retreats into an opium haze, remains one of cinema's most beautiful and desolate endings. 13. The Long Goodbye, 1973. Robert Altman's subversive take on Raymond Chandler's detective novel stars Elliot Gould as a shambling, mumbling version of Philip Marlowe, transplanted to 1970s Los Angeles, where his rigid moral code makes him a relic. Altman completely reimagines Chandler's hard-boiled detective as a bemused outsider, constantly muttering, "It's okay with me," in a world of California hedonism, corruption, and empty self-improvement. Cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond created a deliberately soft, hazy look through a technique called flashing the film negative, giving Los Angeles a dreamlike quality that contrasts with traditional noir visuals. The film's opening sequence, a 10-minute segment of Marlowe trying to feed his cat at 3 a.m., immediately signals, this isn't your typical detective story. Sterling Hayden delivers a towering performance as a self-destructive Hemingway-esque writer, a role he partially improvised while dealing with his own personal demons. Critics and audiences in 1973 were largely baffled by Altman's radical reimagining of an iconic character. Chandler purists were outraged, while others missed the film's subtle satire entirely. The film's reputation has grown enormously over the decades, with directors like Paul Thomas Anderson citing it as a major influence. Inherent Vice is in many ways a direct homage. Film critic Pauline Kael, initially dismissive, later recanted and declared it perhaps the only great modern Chandler adaptation. The film's final scene, where Marlowe's laid-back facade finally cracks, revealing moral conviction beneath the ironic detachment, remains one of cinema's most surprising character revelations. 14. Picnic at Hanging Rock, 1975. Peter Weir's haunting Australian mystery follows the disappearance of several schoolgirls and their teacher during a Valentine's Day outing to Hanging Rock in 1900. The film offers no resolution to its central mystery, instead focusing on the psychological aftermath and the disruption to the rigid social order of the Victorian-era girls' school. Cinematographer Russell Boyd captures the Australian landscape with an ethereal quality that suggests both beauty and menace. The film's dreamy atmosphere is enhanced by Georga Zamfir's pan flute score and Weir's use of diffused soft lighting. What makes the film revolutionary is its complete commitment to ambiguity. The girl's disappearance is never explained, forcing viewers to sit with the discomfort of not knowing. When it was released internationally, many audiences were frustrated by the lack of resolution, expecting a conventional mystery with a satisfying explanation. The film's reputation has grown enormously over time, influencing everything from Sofia Coppola's The Virgin Suicides to Dario Argento's Phenomena. Critics now recognize it as a masterpiece of mood and atmosphere rather than narrative. Film scholar David Thompson calls it one of the most beautiful films ever made, while director Guillermo del Toro cites it as a major influence on his own work with the supernatural. The film's exploration of repressed sexuality, cultural displacement, and humanity's uneasy relationship with the natural world makes it feel remarkably contemporary despite its period setting. 15. 5 Easy Pieces, 1970. Bob Rafelson's character study stars Jack Nicholson as Bobby Dupia, a once promising pianist from a privileged musical family who has rejected his background to work on oil rigs and live with a waitress girlfriend, Karen Black. While the film gained some recognition and Oscar nominations at the time, it's been overshadowed by other Nicholson performances and deserves reconsideration as one of the defining films of 1970s American cinema. What makes Five Easy Pieces extraordinary is its refusal to psychoanalyze or explain its protagonist's alienation. Bobby's dissatisfaction with every available life path is presented as an existential condition rather than something to be resolved. The famous diner scene, "I want you to hold the chicken," is often excerpted as a comedy bit, but in context, it's a perfect crystallization of Bobby's frustration with societal constraints. Cinematographer Laszlo Kovacs captures the Pacific Northwest and California locales with a stark beauty that emphasizes Bobby's isolation. Karen Black delivers an Oscar-nominated performance as Rayette, Bobby's girlfriend, whom he simultaneously needs and disdains. While celebrated upon release, the film has somewhat fallen between the cracks in discussions of 1970s cinema, overshadowed by more obviously revolutionary works. Director Alexander Payne cites it as his favorite film, saying, "It's a perfect American film. That couldn't have been made in any other country." Film critic Roger Ebert noted that Five Easy Pieces is a masterpiece of heartbreaking intensity, capturing a particular type of American male discontent that would come to define much of 1970s cinema. The film's ambiguous ending, Bobby abandoning his girlfriend at a gas station to hitch a ride to an unknown destination, perfectly captures the restless spirit of its era. The 1970s weren't just about blockbusters and disco. They gave us these haunting cinematic treasures that changed how stories could be told on screen. From Coppola's paranoid surveillance thriller to road movies with unmatched performances, these forgotten masterpieces reveal a decade of filmmaking that valued character, atmosphere, and moral ambiguity over easy answers. What's your take? Have you seen any of these overlooked gems? Which one surprised you the most? Drop a comment below with the 70s film you think deserves more recognition. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into cinema's hidden masterpieces that mainstream critics are too scared to talk about.